Bunch of metal bands, tier list, self-explanatory. Let's get into it. Holy God, AC/DC is not a fucking metal band. I understand they have some metal elements to them. I get it. But they're squarely in hard rock, obviously. So let's go in the no category. Airborne is just lame dick AC/DC. They ripped off the AC/DC sound, played a little bit more interesting guitar riffs, and wrote substantially less interesting songs. AC/DC at least is jam-packed with hits. I still love listening to a number of AC/DC songs. Airborne has no songs that I like. It is a blatant ripoff. If that's what they like to do, totally fine. It's also not metal. Alice in Chains, B tier. Keeping in mind that the top tier is A, not S this time. Alice in Chains has done a lot more experimentation than I think they get credit for. Though like I've said before, I don't feel like all the experimentation has been very successful. I'm positive there's people in the comments right now saying they're not really metal. I get it. They're grunge, they're hard rock. They kind of fuse those two things. For the sake of this list, I'm willing to excuse that for now. I made a mistake. Especially if you consider what Metallica was doing during the 90s, which some people would also argue isn't metal. I think that if this doesn't qualify, it's damn close. They've written a few songs that I still love, but at the same time, I really don't care about most of their catalog. The production was never good either. As They Lay Dying, C tier, obviously. They helped pioneer the whole metalcore thing that happened in the mid to early to late 2000s. Most of the writing that they've done, I find pretty boring. You get a lot of the percussiveness, you get a lot of the oomph, the brutality, you get some somewhat interesting rhythms, but they kind of lose their appeal when they're mostly referenced around the same type of harmony every single time. I wouldn't say there's a great variety. Their 2019 album was actually pretty cool. That, in my opinion, was the most interesting stuff they've written ever. Still not quite enough to win me over, at least. Amaranth, C tier. Fusing this poppy, accessible, kind of Eurodance adjacent sound into metal. But I would really say it's infusing a more metal timbre drum and a more metal timbre guitar into European pop. They do write more accessible melodies. They're more hook focused on the vocals, which isn't inherently a bad thing. I don't think they do it extremely well. I've yet to hear an Amaranth song that I would say feels authentic. That, and I don't know who this blonde dude is in Amaranth, but he looks like Brautzo from the H3H3 videos, and that automatically puts them below B tier. Amon Amarth is C tier. Bunch of people like these guys. Don't understand why. I suppose if you enjoy being bored, it's fabulous. I've described Amon Amarth this way multiple times. Say it with me. Strength 12, intelligence 1. The production's usually fine, but the songwriting is so incredibly fucking bland. I don't know. I like something that usually has something approaching a melody or at least a rhythm that I find engaging. Amon Amarth utilizes all of the stereotypes of what metal sounds like and forgets to write songs. Anthrax, C tier. Of the big four thrash bands, this one is hands down the most lucky to be considered in the top 4. Frankly, I would think Testament or Exodus at least have as good of a shot of being there as Anthrax does. Some might say a better shot. The production has mostly been dog shit in their career. I haven't listened to one Anthrax song I've given a fuck about. The only reason why they're not any lower is because of the legacy of being in the big 4, frankly. Apparently there's people who like this band. Let me know who you are in the comments below. Apocalyptica. I would argue they're not really metal. Not bad, but I don't know. It's not really metal to me. I appreciate the atypical ensemble. I like how they try to do something different with stringed instruments, acoustic stringed instruments, but I don't know. Is it metal to you? Provide me some examples. I would love to hear it. Arch Enemy. I'm gonna have to say for myself, not enough context, which is sinful. Arch Enemy is an extremely popular metal band, and I feel like I haven't listened to nearly enough Arch Enemy to have a proper frame of reference to know what these guys get into. Avantasia. Some of my fans are gonna hate me. That's C. Yeah, you know, it's almost a D tier. Do I want to do D tier? I'm tempted just to do it to piss you off. It's a C tier. Most of the production I've listened to is overly soft. They definitely have their headroom being chewed up by things simulating orchestral instruments or synthesizers. A little bit too much cheese for my personal taste. They aren't insulting. They're definitely better than Sonata Arctica, that's for damn sure. But I've yet to be wowed by anything by them. Avatar, I'll put them in B tier. I'm not always completely engaged by what I hear from Avatar, but I think they do a really interesting blend of trying to have some of the shock rock theatrical value with actually some interesting musicianship, performance, and songwriting value. They also do a very good job, in my opinion, of blending a certain level of accessibility with a certain level of horror and brutality. Famously, the first band ever to be put on the band list for Song Suggestion Friday live streams. Not because they're bad, but because I don't want to start every fucking stream with Avatar. Avenged Sevenfold, I'll also give them a B tier. I think Sinister Gates is a very good guitar writer. He's also an excellent guitarist. As most of you know, can't stand listening to M Shadows sing. It's like if I strangled cats and pitched it down 2 octaves. While there are a number of songs of theirs I have enjoyed, I would say I don't love much. And I do want to give them credit for trying to evolve their sound from album to album and pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone. I think that's important. And I do understand why a lot of people love them. That's not a mystery to me. Well, besides the whole tolerating the M Shadows thing. Breaking Benjamin. All right, I'm sorry, C tier. Everyone's gonna hate me for this too. There are so many people that have the biggest dick for this band, and I don't get it. They are fine. They are just fine. Most of their hit songs I don't even really care for that much. Like, they're good. I never mind listening to Breaking Benjamin when I'm not forced to pay attention to it. But it is like the definition of background, early to mid 2000s new metal. Like, it's I guess you could say the standard, but at the same time, that standard is not the highest bar to clear. Their production varied from album to album. They did have some albums with very good production. I don't get it. I don't get it. Black Sabbath, A tier. On legacy and history alone, they have to be A tier. I think almost all of their catalog without Ozzy Osbourne is so incredibly shit. But just the fact that they are literally the foundation of heavy metal as we understand it today, they have to be there. It's like you can't not put Jimi Hendrix in the top tier of a blues rock guitarist tier list. Blind Guardian, yeah, between A and B on them. You know what? Against my better judgment, I'll give them A tier. I am very rarely bored by Blind Guardian. Some of their songs I really enjoy. It's absolutely an acquired taste if you're not into that thing. Hansi's vocals are very unique. You know it's him every single time he's singing, and he kills. The writing is fun and engaging. There's tons of dynamic. The production's normally not that great either. There's a bajillion bands who want to do the power metal fantasy, assert ourselves with grand cheese type of thing, and most of them are really shitty at it. I think these guys, I think Blind Guardian carved out their own identity in that realm that was excellent. Arguably the best, if not top 5. Bring Me the Horizon, fucking D. They're the whole hardcore thing, and I never really cared for them to begin with. It was just like harder emo music. I hope I triggered everyone by saying emo music. And if it wasn't for their vastly gross selling out over their last few albums, they would probably be higher on the list. But that to me was just like, oh yeah, you guys were never in this for artistic expression to begin with. You just want to produce garbage. I will give them full credit on the latest stuff for having some of the coolest production and trying to make things pulse and have a really interesting texture sound-wise. But if you can't back that up with some substance, which I don't find in their stuff, I think it's kind of meaningless. Almost like spending $50 million an episode on a TV show on CGI and forgetting to hire good writers and actors. Bullet for My Valentine. I'm between B and C on it. I wish there was one in between because I would just stick them right there. Like, they're not quite great enough, in my opinion, on Avenged Sevenfold, Avatar, or Alice in Chains, but they're not fucking Anthrax or Amon Amarth. I'm gonna have to put them in C tier, but they're like at the top of C tier. I don't think these guys are bad. Not all of their writing is that exciting to me, but they have some songs I really enjoy. And now I'm even just saying this and I'm like, okay, instead of the top of C tier, they're at the bottom of B tier. The very bottom of B tier. Their production's usually pretty decent, but I will say, after you've listened to a few of the good songs, you're kind of done with it. I think the biggest reason why they slide up to B tier to me is because even though it's not the most interesting writing, I can grasp a unique personality out of this band that I think separates them from a lot of other bands. Cradle of Filth, C tier. In theory, this could be really cool. In execution and in practicality, fuck. They have varying degrees of production quality, never good. Hands down, the worst thing about it are the vocals, which Casey Sable, my co-host on our podcast and our producer for my band, thinks that the lyrics are amazing. I will never get to the lyrics because the vocals sound like fucking dog shit. There was like one or two songs where I actually heard an interesting orchestral arrangement that was kind of engaging, later completely subverted by just horrible awareness of harmonic motion, like voice leading and rhythm. The way that Cradle of Filth treats writing songs is if I could equate to telling you to write a song was the equivalent of telling you to draw a smiley face. You know, it's all curved lines, it's circles, right? But Cradle of Filth tries to draw a smiley face using exclusively 1 inch by 1 inch squares. It never quite feels like a smiley face, just like that never quite feels like natural music. It's just weird for the sake of being fucking weird. They want to be theatrical. Fine, but I hate it. Apt name for the band. Def Leppard. You can technically drop them in the metal thing, especially early on. But I really want to throw them in no. I allowed Alice in Chains. Did I allow anyone else? No. Okay. Controversial. I'm not going to let them be on the tier list. Let me know if I fucked up. Dimmu Borgir, F. They're trying to do something a lot more ham-fisted than Rammstein, and that's saying a lot. They want this kind of industrial side, this kind of horror side. It really does feel, at moments, depending upon the album, like an exaggerated Rammstein. The vocals are hot fucking garbage, just flaming dumpster of bullshit. The production was never good, ever. I think I've given more fuck you privileges to this band on the live stream than I have any other band. This is just fucking shouldn't exist. Disturbed. It's either A or B, honestly. I'm gonna have to give them an A. They helped define and redefine nu metal to a degree. Are they the most interesting and diverse writers? Absolutely not. But I think that they get a little bit too much shit from the metal purists, and especially nowadays with gent being a thing. People are like, oh, that's not fucking tough. Drop D, blah, blah, blah. Like, fucking, sure. They knew how to make some really fucking engaging music, which wasn't all of it, but a lot of it. And David Draymond's vocals destroy. Undeniably fucking destroy. And very unique. Dream Theater, A tier. Don't care what you think, not explaining it. Evanescence, C tier. They are consistently fine. They know how to write good songs. Definitely not my vibe. People always fawn over Amy Lee's vocals, and I feel like it is a perpetual mismatch between her gentle, soft, pillowy voice with something that wants to be aggressive and hard. Their best moments is when everything's stripped down to like acoustic instruments and it's just her. And even still, there's not a ton of strength coming through, which is something I love. The tone is very clear and she has very good pitch, but I want something with a little more dynamic to it. I don't feel like she has tons of dynamic to push up and destroy and fucking, especially with how melodramatic their music, their sound is, and with how dark and flamboyant metal just gets. Don't think they're terrible. Don't even hate them. Just mostly like missed potential. Five Finger Death Punch. I'll give them a B tier. I don't even like them. I mostly don't like Five Finger Death Punch. They even write some pretty good songs, even though I find some of them not to be very authentic, in my opinion. I think they do a very effective crossover of accessibility and trying to stay somewhere in the world of metal. In a comparison to like Amaranth, at least Five Finger Death Punch feels more raw. Amaranth feels so polished and glossed over to the point where you almost question if it's metal or not. You don't question whether or not Five Finger Death Punch is metal. You question whether or not it's good. There's plenty of cringe in this band. I get it. Again, I don't even like them, but I don't think they're terrible. Foo Fighters are not metal. Whoever the fuck made this list is an idiot. Ghost. You know what? I'm gonna put them in not metal. Don't give a fuck what you think. This is my list, bitch. Godsmack. It's either D or C tier. Honestly, I'm gonna have to go D tier. There's a number of Godsmack songs I actually enjoy. A lot of that has to do with nostalgia and the time in which they were making their new music. But I feel like we explored the depth to which this band can express themselves on the first album, and they had nothing after that. Well, just more of the same, the vocal, so you told me. Just the fucking shittiest, hilarious meme vocals ever. I don't even hate Godsmack. There's like a soft place in my heart for them, but they're not that good. Gojira, A tier. I don't love everything Gojira does. I think that they have a really interesting way of expressing themselves in the metal world, because they use things that you're like, okay, this is definitely something that metal does, but they like flip it on its head in a way you would never expect. And they're constantly challenging themselves to evolve their sound and do something different, even when there are times when I think it's a terrible decision. The vocals absolutely destroy. Monstrous, angry, bitchin', awesome. Some fucking killer production too. You know they're good when I put a French band in A tier. Guns N' Roses. Okay, for the sake of this tier list, I think I can let them slide the same way I let Alice in Chains slide. Again, bitch to me about it in the comments. It's fine. I would give Guns N' Roses the B tier. They wrote some of the most iconic rock songs ever. And even if they aren't technically metal, those songs were so fucking important to metal. I think that's worth some level of credit and merit. But the songs that aren't hit songs really suck. They're really, really not good. This B tier is mostly off of legacy. Hailstorm. I'm between B and C. You know what? I'll even admit I might not have enough context. I listened to a few songs off of that early album with the I Get Off on You, Getting Off on Me song. And I listened to like a few snippets of Hailstorm here and there after like years and years and years later. So I don't know if I have enough context to properly place them on this list, though I definitely have enough context to know Lizzie Hale dominates as a vocalist. Hamatom, F. I'm sure there's a part of their whole vibe that's supposed to be like memeing and funny and having fun, similar to like Ailstorm. I don't speak German, so I don't 100% know. All I know is most of the top songs on Spotify are literally ripping off popular songs in America. And in a way that's not fun, it's just really fucking annoying and like discount royalty free music type of way. There's something that feels so incredibly inauthentic about Hamaton that really just like tweaks me, almost like a pet peeve. When I listen to it, it makes me want to break them, almost like the music is taunting me. Hammerfall, C tier. They have A tier talent with D tier writing, in my opinion. They display this A tier talent doing some incredibly holy shit technical stuff with songwriting that completely misses the fucking point. Their songwriting about fantasy stuff reminds me of a virgin writing a sex fantasy novel. Just have no idea, emotionally speaking, what's involved or any amount of the technical aspect of the act. It's a shame because there's a shitload of potential in that band, in my opinion. Halloween is F tier. I have never listened to one good Halloween song. The production sucks. If people say it's fun, good for you. I have fun listening to good music, which Halloween is not. Hollywood Undead. Give me a second. Putting them in the eat fucking dog shit tier. In Flames, C tier. They have moments, they know how to write some riffs. Their production has mostly been garbage, but their later albums definitely gets better. I feel like they don't know how to pay off any tension that they build. I wouldn't say they fully understand tension and release of a melody. The rhythms, hit or miss depending. It's a little underwhelming for me. Iron Maiden, it's fucking A tier. It's an Iron Maiden poster back there. They are legends. Bajillion different songs that everyone fucking loves. Undeniable songs that breaks out of this underground virgin incest behavior of metalheads that goes out to like normies who are not depressed and hate their lives. Iron Maiden are one of the foundations. Fucking love them, even though I can make fun of them for fucking months on end. So much to poke fun at Iron Maiden about. And even with all of their faults, they still destroy. Latest album, suck dick. Judas Priest. All right. This is not my personal taste, but I'll give them an A tier. I think there is enough legacy of Judas Priest and what they've contributed to the metal sound from so early on, almost as early as Black Sabbath, that they deserve to be an A tier, and they also have evolved over time, appropriately so. And, you know, Rob Halford, very talented vocalist, Glenn Tipton, wonderful guitarist. Kill Switch Engage, I'll give them B tier. There's a number of their songs that are kind of fun, but again, it's one of those scenarios where after you've listened to some of the fun ones, it all kind of starts to be the samey, at least in my opinion. Love Howard Jones's vocals. I think he destroys, dominates, amazing growls, amazing singing voice. Very good production usually. Definitely better than Five Finger Death Punch. Doesn't quite have that timeless status to me. Korn, C tier. There's some really interesting things about Korn, and I feel like on a very basic, essential level, the essence of what they do, there is a cool concept there that is consistently horribly executed. Their production is just ass, just raw fucking ass. Some of the songwriting is pretty good. There are certain songs that are like this close to being great with just some rewrites, but every single time it's just fucking cringe. But I don't think they're just fucking pure dog shit. Like, there's some good stuff here. Creator, I'll give him a C tier. The guys definitely know how to write some great riffs for this style of metal, much better than average production. They are, in my opinion, the epitome of guitar players writing music for other guitar players as opposed to writing good songs. Vocalist is very talented too. I haven't listened to a Creator song I've actually enjoyed, I'll be honest. I don't even know how to pronounce this band's name, Clavertack or whatever the fuck it is. F. I think I've listened to one of their songs that I've really enjoyed. You know what? I'll give them a D. They're not complete horseshit. Again, I've listened to one of their songs I've really enjoyed, and then the rest of it has been incredibly self-indulgent and boring. The timbre palette they're working with, in their minds, they think it's worthy of having the drone, long, drawn-out timbre thing, but it's not. The timbre palette they're working with actually is kind of interesting if you make it more percussive and allow your, analog compressors to fucking eat a little bit of shit and get some hair on it. Something compositionally and performance-wise a little more aggressive and a little bit more down in the dirt, rough and tumble. Instead, it's fucking boring. There are songs that are like 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes long, feel like 6. Laguna Coils, C tier. Laguna Coils kind of doing their own version of Evanescence, in my opinion. In some ways, a little more interesting. In the songwriting ways, definitely less interesting. A fine vocalist, and I have never heard them actually do a really good melody that I gave a shit about. They did a cover of Losing My Religion and somehow made the song more boring with a metal palette. That's pretty impressive. Lamb of God, I'll give them a C tier. They are fine. It's the best way I would put it. I've never hated listening to Lamb of God. I've never loved listening to Lamb of God. They write some cool riffs. I don't find their songs particularly engaging. If I was at a Lamb of God show, it would probably kick ass. It is just like everything is fine. It's just fine. Limp Bizkit, D. Wes Borland is far more creative than Fred Durst deserves. Fred Durst is top 10 cringiest vocalists of all time in popular music. Lyrics are usually extremely cringy too. Production, usually not that great, but sometimes it's actually kind of interesting with their sound. Sometimes there are actually some pretty cool musical ideas and weird effects that they do that I'm like, there's actually something kind of interesting here that is constantly subverted by the shitty fucking backwards baseball cap and the Husqvarna. I get the memes. They're funny. If you enjoy Limp Bizkit, I'm happy for you. Congrats. But it's fucking cringe. Linkin Park, B tier. Technically not really metal anymore, honestly. Their earlier phases definitely was. First two albums, stellar. Most of the shit after that, not very remarkable. To be honest, they almost sound like a completely different band. For the shit that was metal, kicked ass. Hybrid Theory, in my opinion, is one of the most important albums in metal that I think gets forgotten a lot because we take it for granted. And a lot of people like to shit on new metal, and this kind of falls into that new metal-ish realm. It was a really fucking good album, man. Really good. The lyrics are like a smidgen surface level, but I was never cringing, and especially to teens, they relate to that shit. And it's not unhealthy either. It's good messages. It's not self-absorbed dog shit, even though it is very reflective, I would say. There's some really good things about Linkin Park, but they're not quite legendary enough to get them to A, in my opinion. Fucking Manowar. C. I'm perpetually bored by them. It's a lot less about the music and a lot more about the theming. The most fun I ever had listening to Manowar was with my friends when they were drunk as piss, singing along to Manowar, and I was laughing my dick off. That was great. But let's be honest, I'm never on purpose going to listen to Manowar. Mastodon, A tier. B tier. But the toppity top of top, tippy top, a B tier. The opposite end of Bullet for My Valentine. I keep them one step below because, in all honesty, with the exception of one Mastodon song, which I believe was The Last Baron, I never hate listening to their songs, but I rarely love listening to their songs. Although, a lot of times I'll find it enjoyable enough. But besides that one song, The Last Baron, I never find the urge to want to put them on. And they're good. They're very, very good. They did some cool pioneering shit, especially with fusing two different worlds of metal together in a really creative and interesting way. I wouldn't even say the singing is very good, but it works very well for them. It feels extremely authentic. It's got some intelligence to it. It's got some fucking balls to it. It is exceedingly their own identity, and that's awesome. But I just don't care enough. And that's not the shit talk Mastodon, that's just my taste. Megadeth, I don't even want to do this, but they're A tier. I find most of the writing to be not very good, but considering how influential the guitar work of Dave Mustaine is, the writing of Dave Mustaine is, there's enough legacy here that I think they should be considered A tier. Especially if we're going to toss Dream Theater and Gojira in A tier, Megadeth should be an A tier on legacy alone. Metallica is obviously A tier, and if you don't think so, you're retarded. Machine Head, I will give them a very strong C tier. Love the song Halo. The rest of their catalog, I don't really give a shit about. Rarely hate it. There was one of their newer songs that someone suggested on the live stream that I legitimately kind of hated, but they're just kind of there in the new wave of American metal sound for me. They are usually fine. Marilyn Manson. Give him a B tier. My own personal biases aside, I think the man has actually done some pretty creative things with songwriting and production and has carved his own niche in the theatrical horror, metal music, industrial type of sound. The man is definitely an artist, even though I don't find him to be an extremely amazing artist. He definitely still is an artist. Even his singing voice, which isn't very good, works extremely well for his style and his macabre atmosphere. Motorhead, D tier. I don't even give a fuck how influential they are. I don't know how they're as influential as they are. I don't understand it. Lemmy sings like shit. God rest him. Some of the most boring shit I've ever heard that somehow gets birthed into one of the most important bands in metal ever. I'm never going to understand it. I can stand to listen to Megadeth. I mostly can't stand to listen to Motorhead. Nightwish. Again, a strong C tier. There are moments where they get closer to like an Epica type of sound. I think they are extremely effective, and I think they kick some ass, but a whole lot of it is really boiled over, like trying to lay the groundwork for an aesthetic that doesn't quite have enough dynamic to ever fully pay off. And it really depends from album to album, song to song, and shit like that. I have never been upset by a Nightwish song that I've listened to, but I very rarely want to pay attention to a Nightwish song I'm listening to. Production's hit or miss, and it's never terrible, but it's not always amazing. Nirvana is not a fucking metal band. Pantera, A tier. They redefined American metal in the 90s that birthed a shitload of people that are on this list. Dimebag is easily one of the most influential and important guitar players to have ever graced rock and metal. I wouldn't even say most of their catalog is that good, but man, there are certain songs that are just undeniable. On top of that, their legacy factor, I mean, it's just, that to me is an easy A. I don't even love this band. Should do a video on Pantera at some point. Papa Roach, eat fucking dog shit. Parkway Drive, I'm giving them a D. I've never listened to a Parkway Drive song that I like. I don't understand the appeal. Maybe there's something here that I'm missing. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't even know that they're really that influential, honestly. I just kind of wish I could forget they exist. Powerwolf, D. I'm mostly bored by Powerwolf. Not very good production. Lyrics are kind of cringe. Singing's not great. Vocals aren't very great. Not incredibly interesting. Rammstein, I'll give them a B. They're very good writers. They have, I think, a great way of touching onto important social stuff that they want to talk about in Till's own way, while also incorporating that well into their whole shock rock, fucked up attitude and atmosphere that they have. My biggest criticism of Rammstein is that on each album, most of the songs sound really fucking samey, and their latest work has not been very good, in my opinion. I still absolutely love Sehnsucht, and I think Mutter is a good album. I think B is the comfy spot for them. Sabaton, I will also give them a B tier. I find Sabaton to be exceedingly boring, but that's because it's not nearly as much about the music as it is about the history and the storytelling. Understanding that storytelling obviously is a factor that can go into musical expression that's also important. I think that's worth something to pass these stories down and to try and give a little bit of humanity to a bunch of these European battles and shit like that. There's something that has some real merit there. The production is usually pretty good. I've referred to them as the metal ABBA because of their songwriting style and the lyrics. Vocalist is kind of hilarious in an awesome way. I don't think Sabaton will really ever be my thing, but I don't think they're trash. I'm sick of being forced to hear them. Septic Flesh, B tier. I've never been fully won over by a complete Septic Flesh composition, which makes me sad. And the vocals, while I think they do match the atmosphere and the timbres and textures of the music, I really think it's just a little much for me. But man, there's certain moments and their production and tone at certain parts is so fucking good. Really juicy. Really, really, really juicy. If there were some songwriting changes and maybe a little bit more dynamic to the expression of the vocal performance, I might even give them the A, but they're not quite A for me. Acknowledging they're extremely talented. Sepultura. All right, for me, that's got to be a C. If it wasn't for the fact that I've given enough glances over their catalog to know that they actually have tried to evolve over time, they'd be a D. I admire the fact that they want to reinvent themselves, even if it's constantly stuff I don't like. They have like a bit of that new metal-ish, Godsmack-ish factor going on with some of their writing, especially earlier on. Later on, it mixed up a little more. I fucking hate the vocals. Cannot stand the vocals. Like the blood roots or whatever the fuck they're talking about. Something about roots or shit. I was laughing the whole time they were singing that. I thought it was hilarious. I don't particularly find them enjoyable or interesting, but I'll give them credit for being authentic. I think they're very real. And I think part of that being very real is trying to naturally evolve your sound the way you as a human being naturally evolve. I think that's cool. Skid Row is a nope. Slaughter to Prevail. I do not have enough context for these guys. I don't remember any of the Slaughter to Prevail songs I've ever listened to. Slayer, fucking C tier. I understand they're part of the big four. I get it. Their production is almost exclusively sucked dick. The thing everyone says is, oh, amazing riff writers, but terrible at solos. Like, I mean, even their riffs aren't that amazing, though they're kind of fun. But riffs do not a song make. Their songwriting's pretty ass too, usually. Yes, Kerry King's solos, fucking horrible. I get the energy, I get the brutality, I understand why people like that and enjoy that. And also I understand the legacy of Slayer, but I also don't give a fuck. If I never heard Slayer again, I would probably be happier. Slipknot, C tier. They have a handful of undeniably very good songs, and the rest of it is not very good. In my opinion, they're one of the most overrated metal bands of all time. I wouldn't even say it's pure garbage. I would say it's exaggerated mediocrity. How they can get away with having such half-ass production on albums that probably have massive budgets is well the fuck beyond me. For a band that writes this fucking basically, there is zero reason you need more than 4 fucking members in your band. And you, for some reason, have 9 because you are fiscally retarded. Sonata Arctica, D. Talented musicians with horrible sense of production, writing, and arranging. Just start from scratch, guys. Stone Sour, not considering them metal right now. Stradivarius, for talent level, they at least are in C. Songwriting wise, I don't know if it gets me to B, honestly. It's really tough for me. Yeah, they're gonna have to go in C, but like more upper echelon of C. Their talent from their vocalists and from their musicians are really good, really, really good. I don't know that I've had more than 1, maybe 2 songs where I've like thoroughly enjoyed it. Again, it lands into that weird cheese factor where I don't feel like they fully know how to transition things in a sexy, smooth way. They are, musician-wise, more talented than Blind Guardian, but aren't as good at writing, in my opinion. I even feel bad putting them in C tier because I feel like they probably might deserve better, but I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable putting them in B tier. System of a Down, A tier. Extremely unique personality. A sound of metal that really hadn't been done before. Very experimental, super quirky. Not everything works, but the stuff that does work is fucking amazing. They never hold themselves back. In my opinion, it sounds like they never make any compromises. They're just them and fucking fuck. And they've written a ton of popular shit. Like fucking great band. Undeniably great band. 3 Days Grace, D tier. They have 2 hit songs I absolutely love, and the rest is literal audible poison. Testament, C tier. I don't love most Testament songs, though there's been a few that have been like, fuck, this is just really good. While I think the guy is a good vocalist, him being such a deep register is weird for me. I don't know that I love it. The production is usually pretty damn good. The riffs are usually really good, really fun, honestly. Songwriting is not very consistent for me, and that's the biggest reason why I didn't throw them in B tier. But they're a fucking good band, undeniably. Tool, A tier. I don't even love Tool. I think what Tool did as far as crafting their own identity, pushing music forward, changing the way people write in this modern time for hard rock and metal, just rethinking how you do musicking is brilliant, really good stuff. Again, I don't love listening to most of what Tool does, but that frame of mind and that method of crafting and that method of musicking, for lack of a better term, I think is extremely useful and good. That and, I mean, massive legacy. This is going to be a timeless band. I have no doubt. Trivium, C tier. Incredibly talented musicians that suffer from basically a lot of the same things that Creator does. I mean, apply pretty much what I said about Creator to Trivium, and it's mostly the same. I made Volbeat. Eat fucking dog shit. And finally, Within Temptation, C Tier. I've listened to a number of Within Temptation songs, and I would say I've never loved anything, but I've never been upset by anything. Suffers from similar stuff to what I said about like Evanescence or Nightwish. Like, it never fully has that big payoff moment to me. It seems like they're always kind of holding back a little bit. In this case, I think it works better with her voice. I forget the lady's name who sings for Within Temptation, but she's very good. The production's usually pretty damn good. The thing I would say is just I don't remember any of the songs. They never stick with me. They never do a whole lot. It might be another one of those, it's about the story, it's about the lyrics bands. My brother's really into them. He's a big lyrics guy. I have nothing bad to say about them. I just don't have a whole lot amazing to say about them from my perspective. I don't know. All right, this is my tier list. Looks pretty teary. Love you all. Fuck you.